Good morning. Good to see everyone this morning. Go ahead and turn to 2 Samuel chapter 14. 2 Samuel chapter 14. This morning we're going to be talking about the ways of the Lord. The ways of the Lord. You don't have to raise your hand, but how many of you have heard this statement? God works in mysterious ways. We've all heard that statement before. And indeed, God does work in mysterious ways. What we mean by mysterious are ways in which that you cannot see oftentimes, you cannot understand. It's outside of your parameters of thinking. And a lot of things that really come to mind when I think about the ways of the Lord, like creation. Who can understand creation? Who can understand speaking something into existence? I have no idea. What about sustainment? How God sustains this world. How he sustains so many things. Sustains our health. Sustains our life. Can you understand that? Do you understand his ways of sustainment? When the Lord is responding to Job after Job's inquiry, if you will, one of the things that he says to Job is, can you loosen the belt of Orion? Can you loosen the belt of Orion? He talks about how he's moving all of these other stars, these constellations, how they're a part of his plan. Not only that, but at another place he says that he has a name for every star. Can you understand that? Do you know what that means? Why does God move stars around? Why is he moving these constellations around, as he says? Why does he have a name for every last single one? What's up with that? Those are the ways of the Lord. Ways that you and I cannot understand. Well, okay, that's way out there. What about if we bring it a little bit closer to home here? What about the rising and falling of nations? Can you understand that? Do you know how that works? In Isaiah, we are told that each nation is like a drop in a bucket to the Lord. Do you know what that looks like? Or what that means? I've never described a nation, like an entire nation, like a country, as just a drop in a bucket. But that's how they are to the Lord, as Isaiah writes. These are the ways of the Lord that you and I cannot understand. And they're so mysterious to us. And of course, as you know, those aren't just the only things. We can go on and on and on and take some time and go to Job, go to the Lord's response to Job to check out what he is saying to him. And he's not even saying everything there. There's just so much about the Lord and his ways that we do not know, that we cannot understand. But brethren, I'm going to tell you today, there is a way that we do know. There is a way that we can be assured of. There is a way that is truly of God, and this way cannot be mistaken for any other. Even though God does indeed work in so many mysterious ways, in this way, he always does. And in this way, we can always tell. That is, and bringing the sinner back to him. Bringing the sinner to salvation. I've asked you to turn to 2 Samuel chapter 14. Let me go ahead and give you just a little bit of context here. Two of David's sons fought, one killed the other. We're not going to get into all of the reasons of that, but after the one son killed his brother, he ran off. Now this one son, he is the son of a king. As you know, he's a prince. Very loved by the people and by David. Losing one son is already bad enough, but now it feels like he's lost both of them because now one's run off and not trying to come home and he doesn't know what's going on. David is very saddened by this. He would really love for his son to come home. Now he's already expressed this, he's already said this, but he's not done anything about it yet. Now the servants of David are recognizing this. They're saying, oh man, our king is just so sad and he's so downtrodden through the loss of his son. And he would really just like to call him back, but he's not doing anything yet. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to come up with a story, if you will. and see if we can convince him that he should welcome his son back so that we'll be happy, so that he'll be happy, and things will be well within our kingdom. That's the plan. So what ends up happening is one of the servants of David brings this woman in, and he tells her, hey, I need you to act like you've lost one of your children, okay? I need you to act like you've lost one of your kids. And the way you lost them is because the other one had killed the other one, okay? Like one of your sons killed one of your sons. And now the people, there are some people who have recognized that, and they're wanting to kill your son who's alive. But if they kill your son who's alive, then that's going to take away your heir. So I need you to recognize that. I need you to feel that way, be dressed that way, and go tell that story to the king. Okay? And now we're going to pick up in the midst of that while she is telling this story. We're going to pick up in verse 6 of 2 Samuel 14. She says, and your servant had 2 sons, and they quarreled with one another in the field. There was no one to separate them, and one struck the other and killed her. Okay, so we know that. And now the whole clan has risen against your servant. And they say, give up the man who struck his brother, that we may put him to death, for the life of his brother whom he killed. And so they would destroy the heir also. Thus they would quench my coal that is left, and leave to my husband neither name nor remnant on the face of the earth. Then the king said to the woman, go to your house, and I will give orders concerning you. And the woman of Tekoa said to the king, on me be the guilt, my lord, the king, and on my father's house. Let the king and his throne be guiltless. The king said, if anyone says anything to you, bring him to me, and he shall never touch you again. Then she said, please let the king invoke the Lord your God, that the avenger of blood kill no more, and my son be not destroyed. And he said, as the Lord lives, not one hair of your son shall fall to the ground. As you can see here, David is like, yeah, that's right. We're going to protect this son. We're going to protect that heir. Yeah, he may have done something wrong here, but you want him to live. Now I want him to live. Now we're going to make sure that he lives. Then the woman said, verse 12, please let your servant speak a word to my lord the king. He said, speak. The woman said, why then have you planned such a thing against the people of God? What does she mean here? Well, from their perspective, David is going to allow his heir to die off, that is Absalom, his son, if he doesn't welcome him back. And it seems as if he's waiting for the avenger of blood to get him so that, nothing is going to truly be resolved in the house of David. So that's why she responds, why then have you planned such a thing against the people of God? Are we to go on without an heir? For in giving this decision, the king convicts himself, inasmuch as the king does not bring his banished one home again. Now that's where it's going to hit home, hit to his heart there. She's saying, I see you're upset about this. I see you're angry about this. I see you're ready to do something about this. Now this is just a story that I'm telling you, but if you feel that strongly about my son, how much more do you feel about your own son, who you need to welcome back? That's what she means. She says this in verse 14, and this is really the focus of our lesson this morning. We must all die. We are like water spilled on the ground, which cannot be gathered up again. But God will not take away life, and he devises means so that the banished one will not remain an outcast. You can stop there. I love the NIV version of 2 Samuel 14 and verse 14. It says, like water spilled on the ground, which cannot be recovered, so we must die. But that is not what God desires. Rather, he devises ways that a banished person does not remain banished from him. And we'll stop there. Isn't that lovely? Isn't that amazing? Isn't that the truth? There are a lot of ways in which we can talk about God. But one of the ways that we can be assured of when it comes to God and his ways and what he desires the sinner to be saved. He desires the sinner to be saved. And in this example here, he desires the one who has been banished to not remain banished, but to come back and to be saved. This, as we can tell, is not only a reflection of the heart of David, but no doubt a reflection of God's own heart as well. And David himself recognized this earlier on. In Psalm 51, I'm going to pick up in verse 12 here. As y'all know, Psalm 51 is in response to his sin with Bathsheba, him fully understanding and recognizing the sin that he has committed before the Lord and towards other people. He says to the Lord in verse 12, "Restore to me the joy of your salvation and uphold me with a willing spirit." He says, I need to be better. I need to be better. I need you to restore to me the joy of your salvation. I need you to uphold me with a willing spirit. And he says, when you do that, then I will teach transgressors your ways, and sinners will return to you. How can he say that? How can he say something like that? Because he was a sinner and a transgressor as well. Here's a sinner and a transgressor who is asking the Lord for forgiveness. He's like, Lord, I need to come back to your way. Lord, I need to come back to your presence. Lord, I need to come back to what you mean for me, and not what I've been trying to do in the world. I need to be taught by you. And by being taught by you, I understand then what you would have me to do. You would have me to teach transgressors your ways and sinners to return to you. In verse 14, he says, deliver me from blood guiltiness, O God of my salvation, and my tongue will sing aloud of your righteousness. You know, another good reason why he says that is because there is nothing in the law that could cover what David had done. He had done something so egregious and so terrible, the law doesn't even cover this kind of stuff, of a king acting in such a way. It is only through the forgiveness, the mercy of the Lord, that he is forgiven. And he understands that. He's like, this is not by the law. I need something. I need the Lord. I need the Lord himself to deliver me from blood guiltiness. And oh God of my salvation, and my tongue will sing aloud of your righteousness. He understands that he needs to be delivered from this so that his tongue then will sing aloud of God's righteousness. Oh Lord, open my lips, and my mouth will declare your praise. This is something, as we've noted before, is not only a reflection of David's heart, but more importantly, a reflection of God's heart. When we're talking about the ways of the Lord, a surefire way of the Lord is to return sinners back to him. To return sinners back to him. And no doubt, brethren, this is where you and I can see ourselves in this situation. We've all sinned, we've all gone astray, we've all done wrong things. We've recognized the salvation that God offers through his Son, Jesus the Christ, and we are saved and known as legitimate children of his. But that doesn't mean we're always going to be acting like legitimate children. That doesn't mean we're always going to be remembering the sacrifice he's done and made for us. That doesn't mean we have it on the top of our minds and on the tip of our tongues, his mercies and his grace. We're often going to be confounded by the world and falling into various sins. Whether we're falling into anger, we're falling into things that we shouldn't say, or places we shouldn't go, and other things that we shouldn't do. The world is here to tempt us outside of Christ. And when we go to those things, when we allow ourselves to follow in its ways, we are no longer following the way of the Lord. The way of the Lord is that the sinner returns back to God. That the sinner is washed away, has their sins washed away by God, and are in a secured place, saved by him. You and I can recognize with David here that we've all been in a very sinful situation, but we all recognize now that we are to be God's children in the world. And so we know that when I'm sinning and when I'm messing up, I've got to go back to his way. Because I can recognize, I can discern that when I sin and when I fall short, I'm not following his way, I'm following the way of the world. I'm following the way of Satan. There's a way that I always have to follow. There's a choice that I always have to make every single day. Which way am I going to follow? Either you're going to follow the way of the Lord or you're going to follow the way of the world. Which one? This is something that you and I recognize as well when it comes to our hearts. Whose way? His way or yours? Following in your own footsteps or following after his? As Christians, you and I must recognize that the way of the Lord is to bring sinners back to him. That includes ourselves. That includes ourselves, as David recognizes here. But that's not the only thing he recognizes. After he understands that he himself must be brought back to the Lord, he also understands that, man, I've got to tell other people about what God has done for me. I've got to tell other people about the way of the Lord. I've got to let other people know about what God has not only done for me, but what he is ready to do for you. And brethren, that's exactly the sort of situation that we have to be in as well. That we recognize the great forgiveness that God has given to us. That we recognize the great mercy that he's given to us. That his everyday graces that he gives to us. And we have to be ready to tell other people about it. Let's first understand the sort of attitude we need to have in order to do that. As people who have been saved by the blood of Jesus and getting ready to tell other people and how they can be saved by the blood of Jesus, following the way after their Lord, there's a certain attitude that you and I must have. Turn to Psalm 27. Psalm 27. We all need to understand how we can do this. I have been saved. You have been saved. Now we want to do the saving. We want to walk in the way of the Lord because that's his way. The way that the Lord is walking, he's always walking in the way of bringing sinners back to him. How can we walk in that way? How can we know what that way is? First, we need to understand we have to have a particular attitude about it. In Psalm 27, we're going to pick up in verse 11 here. The psalmist writes, "Teach me your way, O Lord, and lead me on a level path because of my enemies. Give me not up to the will of my adversaries, for false witnesses have risen against me, and they breathe out violence. I believe that I shall look upon the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. Wait for the Lord, be strong, and let your heart take courage. Wait for the Lord." He says, stop there. Here, the psalmist here, as we're taking away from this, is we're taking away an example of attitude for us. There is a particular attitude that you and I have to have as we're getting ready to talk to people about the way of the Lord, about how they can be saved like you and I have been saved. We recognize that we need to continue to learn from him. As he says here, teach me your way, O Lord. It's not that he didn't know, it's that he still needed to be taught. And it's the same thing with you and I. We're never done learning, are we? Well, we're never done figuring it all out. We're never done with our steps. We're never done following the way. We're never done. Teach me your way. As long as he lives, there's going to be more ways to learn. That's exactly what we need. And that's exactly what the psalmist is recognizing here. Teach me your way, O Lord. Lead me on a level path because of my enemies. There's another thing that you and I have to understand. People are going to get in the way. People are going to get in the way. Sometimes they're going to do that on purpose. Sometimes they're going to do it by accident. Sometimes they're going to do it just because that's just the way of the world and they think what they're doing is right. But you and I need to know the difference. Our path isn't always going to be leveled. It's not always going to be easy because there are going to be some people who are looking at your Christian life and wanting to judge you because of what you believe in, because of what you're trying to do. Well, you're saying I'm a sinner? Well, I don't really like that. I'm already depressed enough as it is. I need to think good things about myself. Oh, you're saying that I need to follow his way? Why does it got to be his way? Why can't it be her way? Why can't it be this way? Why can't it be that way? You're going to hear a lot of things out here in the world, and yet you and I, brethren, must be secured on his way. You understand? Knowing full well that we're going to have enemies who stand in the way. This is exactly what the psalmist recognizes here. Which is why he also says, give me not up to the will of my adversaries. They're going to want evil for you. They're going to want pain for you. For false witnesses have risen against me, and they breathe out violence. Did not our Lord warned that false witnesses may be charged against us as well. But we're also warned that we need to act and live in such a way so that the evildoers cannot speak evil of us. That's the way in which you and I should live. Because that is the way of the Lord. You understand? If you and I are going to be following after his way in order to bring others to him, we've got to be solidified in what the Lord has taught us through his word. We have to be solidified in what the Lord has taught us through his example, through his apostles here. You understand? So let's pick up our Bibles. Let's read our Bibles. Let's understand it to the best of our ability. Let's walk the way in which he has called us to walk. But let's also be mindful that people will stand in my way. They might do it on accident. They might do it on purpose. They might doing it just following the rest of the world. Be mindful of that. You and I do not have the luxury of going out here and thinking, oh yeah, it's going to be easy peasy, a walk in a park. We don't have the luxury of thinking that way. Did our Lord have that? Of course not. So you and I do not expect to have the luxury of peace and prosperity as we live in this world, but we have the idea that people are ready to act against me because I'm preaching and I'm teaching against the ways in which they're living. Another thing here that we can take away in verse 13, he says, I believe that I shall look upon the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. He's like, I've got a hope of heaven, baby. I got that hope of heaven. And nothing's going to stand in the way. Nothing. That's the attitude you and I have to have. We understand that we've been saved for that very purpose. That we're going to look upon the Lord in the land of the living. Yeah, that's what we want. That's the whole plan. That's the whole idea here. But we want to bring others with us. Right? Other people have to be able to see that hope of heaven that we have. They have to be able to see, like, look, man, I'm going to heaven. Okay? And I ain't going to get nothing. And I mean nothing in the way of that. Do you understand? That's where I'm going. That's where I'm headed to. You want to go there? Okay, let me tell you how to get there. Okay? Let me tell you how to get there. Oh, why is my attitude so great while everybody else is so depressed and they so sad about what's going on in the world? Let me tell you why. I got a hope of heaven. I've got nothing to worry about. I'm good. You understand? That's exactly what the psalmist is saying here. He's saying, I believe I shall look upon the goodness of the Lord. That is affecting him. He's like, man, I have an assurance that I'm going to look upon his face and a good land. That's what I'm looking forward to. That's what I want, he says. And that's the sort of attitude you and I need to have as well. Wear it on your sleeves, brethren. Wear it on your legs. Put it on as socks, if you will. Put it on your head as a hat. Whatever you put on, put it on. And put it on like you're ready to go to heaven. Like, hey man, I'm not going to let anything get in the way. I'm getting myself ready to see the face of my Lord in the land of the living. Another good part of our attitude that we must understand. Verse 14. Wait for the Lord. Be patient. Be patient. Wait for him. It's not sitting there doing nothing. It's being active. It's following after his rules and his statutes and his commandments. It's making sure to the best of my ability I can be consistent well with what he has called me to do. Despite me not seeing what I want to see, I'm going to be consistent. I'm going to have that integrity because my Lord has that integrity. That's what it looks like. Waiting on the Lord looks like I'm going to have integrity here. I'm going to keep up my praying. I'm going to keep up my studying. I'm going to keep up talking to people. I'm going to keep learning. I'm going to keep growing. I'm going to keep being the child God has called me to be. Wait on the Lord. And while you're waiting, be strong. Be strong. There are a lot of talks sometimes when everyone is like, well, you know, the church is like a hospital. There are some good ideas with that, but there are also some bad ideas with that. If everyone is in the hospital, who's taking care of other people? You see what I'm saying? If everyone's sick, if everyone needs help, if everyone's got their legs and their arms chopped off, who's going to help us? You see what I'm saying? Somebody's got to have their legs and their arms. Okay? Somebody's got to be ready and willing. Somebody has got to be strong here. You see what I'm saying? And our expectation should not be, well, the leaders are always going to be strong. That should be that, but it's not just them. It's you too. Everyone has got to be strong. Now I want you to think about that, brother. Every last single member is solid and strong. Oh man, what could we not do? What could we not accomplish together? Yeah. That's the plan here. That's the idea. That every last single member, that every last single sinew and muscle and whatever part of the body we find ourselves in is going to be strong as strong can be. Do you understand? That's the attitude that you and I need to have. You've been saved by God. You desire to walk in His ways. His ways is bringing sinners back to God. So you're going to walk in those ways. This is how it's done. Have the attitude of strength. Not a false strength. I get it. A lot of times, sometimes that'll mess us up as well. You'll be going around here thinking you're strong, and then something small happens and and then you get like really angry. I recognize this about myself the other day. I was all like, oh man, I'm good, I'm solid, and then like I saw some article and it just messed me up for hours. And I was like, oh, man, I was just downtrodden because of the world. I'm like, wait a minute. It's not wrong that those bad things get to me, but it's wrong if I just let it sit there and I fester over it, and then now I'm unproductive and I'm not doing the things I'm supposed to do. That's not what it needs to be. We need to be strong, brethren. Let your heart take courage. You've got things to do. You, specifically, have things to do. You understand? And that's the kind of person you need to be if indeed you're going to be walking in the ways of the Lord. That's the attitude that we need to have. Turn now to the New Testament in Luke chapter 5. Luke chapter 5. That's the attitude we need to have. Now we need to walk in His steps. Luke chapter 5, these two verses here. We're going to pick up in verse 31. And Jesus answering them said unto them, They that are in health have no need of a physician, but they that are sick. I am not come to call the righteous, but sinners to repentance. That's the plan. You understand? That's the plan. That's why your Lord showed up. That's why He saved you out as well. We've got work to do. We've got people to save. There are so many things, brethren, that you and I can be doing. And I do want you to take some time to think about those things. If you're at work, talk to your coworkers. Talk to your coworkers. I've already told y'all about the many examples that I have of so many people just readily, just to listen, to want to talk about the Word, to talk about Jesus, to talk about how to be saved. They're always ready and willing to listen. But there's so much more that can be done as well. If you're at work, you can send them little letters, little notes. There are things you can send people, right? While you're there at lunchtime, you can talk to them. You can show them the verses you're often quoting, you're often bringing up. You can show them why you have that hope of heaven. At work, there are just so many opportunities because you're surrounded by all of these people here to tell them about your Lord and what He has done for you and why it is important that they recognize what He can do for them as well. What about at home? There are, of course, many things that we can do at home, well within our own families. As the husbands are leading their homes, they're leading their homes in a godly way. As the wives are there making sure that all things are done and good, keeping with the Lord as well. The children that are still there in the homes, you want to raise to be as godly as possible, as good as possible. But do not think for a second that your job stops there. Of course, it does not. If you're at home, there are things that can be done as well. Things that can be done as a family and walking in the ways of the Lord. You can go together and talk to one of your neighbors. Right? You can go together and have dinner, have lunch, whatever. I mean, honestly, food doesn't even need to be involved. And just talk to those people. Get to know them. Invite them over. Invite them over consistently. So at least they know that you're serious about it, right? Because that's what they need to know. They need to see you're serious about it. If you're at home, there are many other things that you can do for your brethren, for your church. I don't know what I'm going to be doing if I ever retire, if this economy ever allows. But I hope I'm going to be busy, well within the church, getting things done, showing people to Christ, showing people to God, following in his ways. Because that's why I'm here. That's why you were saved. And that's the plan. And what I really like for us to do, as we talked about over there in 2 Samuel 14:14, as God devises ways and means to bring the banished person back, I want you to do the same thing. You know, because Satan is out here devising his own schemes and his own plans. What about you and I devising ways and plans to bring people to Christ? Yeah? I want us to be thinking about those things. I want us to be actively thinking about ways we can bring someone here. Let's talk about someone we're thinking about. Let's just focus in on that person. Let's see what we can do to devise something, some sort of means or ways to bring them to Christ. That's something the church can do. That's something that you and I can do together. You have a brother or a sister. I have a brother. I have a sister. You have another family member. Let's talk about that. Let's see if there's something that we can do. Let's see if there's something that we can do together. Right? Doesn't have to be just open like that. We can devise other ways. You're going out to lunch. I just so happen to meet you there. So does a couple other brethren. And then we're just talking about our church, and we're just talking about the Lord. See that? There are all of these things, brethren, that you and I can do to devise ways to help people know who Christ is. And that's what we can do. Because out here in the world, you already know that Satan is not resting. He's not only trying to make sure that the people who are lost remain lost, but he's trying to get the people who are saved to get back to lost. You see what I'm saying? So we've got to come up with ways of our own. We've got to come up with means of our own. We've got to follow the Lord all the way through and let nothing get in the way. And with the right attitude and some creativeness, no doubt, you and I can come up with all sorts and types of things to help bring people to Christ. That's the way a church should work and function. That's what we need to be doing. Getting ready to bring people to Christ. That's the plan. And as you and I always recognize this in John 14 and verse 6, thus Jesus said unto him, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one cometh unto the Father but by me. That's the last thing you and I need to be remembering and recognizing and telling people. They must be saved. They must be saved. You understand? They need to know this way. They need to know the truth. They need to know how to live. That is through Jesus Christ. That's the plan. And brethren, I hope that this morning we have been encouraged to come up with ways, to find ways. You may not know them now. That's okay. Let's take some time together, alone, at any point, at any time. Let's think of some ways to help other people to Christ, to bring them to God. Because the way of the Lord is to save sinners. And you and I have decided to walk in his way the moment we decided to be saved. And he thinks that that is very important. And I hope we do too. My plan here is to walk in the way of the Lord, to bring as many people as we can to Christ. That's the plan. The last thing I'll read for you is found in Psalms 25. Psalms 25, I'm going to pick up in verse 4. He says, make me to know your ways, O Lord. Teach me your paths. Lead me in your truth and teach me. For you are the God of my salvation. For you I wait all the day long. Remember your mercy, O Lord, and your steadfast love, for they have been from of old. Remember not the sins of my youth, or my transgressions. According to your steadfast love, remember me, for the sake of your goodness, O Lord. Good and upright is the Lord. Therefore he instructs sinners in the way. He leads the humble in what is right, and teaches the humble in his way. We'll stop there. That's the plan, my brethren. May we always lean upon the Lord to learn from him his ways of salvation. May we continue to pray to him that he open our hearts and open our minds, help us to be as creative as possible to bring people to Christ in truth and in spirit. To make sure that these people know that we are his children. To make sure that these people know that we're desiring to please him. And that we're truly people of his way. That's what we want. And so, my brethren, may you be encouraged with those words. There's a lot of work that we can do out here. But just know full well that your enemy is working longer, harder, and stronger. You and I, we have to wait. We have to rest. We have to recuperate. We have to do this. Satan doesn't need to do any of that. And he is constantly working. But you and I can be working against him in what we have from the Lord and with each other in his church. That's the plan, my brethren. And may we be the most strongest Christians that we can possibly be in this area. But I know that that's not always what is going on in your life. There are some other things that may be happening, some other things that may be going on. And those things, as you know, may be standing in the way of your genuine relationship with God. They need to be out of the way. Get them out the way. So what's going on? Part of people understanding that you and I are part of the way is knowing how to deal with sins and problems and issues well within the church. Give us a chance to do that. So what's going on? And even, no doubt, if it's just for your own sake, I got to let my brother know of something. Man, I've been struggling with this, and I need to let it go. I need the prayers of my brethren to help me. And I need more than your prayers. I need your presence there. I need you to help me in this way or in that way. Whatever way that you need, that's why you have a church. Got it? So whatever it is, my brother, let it be known now as we stand and as we sing together.